Okay, Tom, you are set. You are now host. The meeting is live streaming on YouTube.
Cool.
So whenever the meeting's done, make sure that you hit end meeting so the stream doesn't continue.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, then I shouldn't use my computer audio, I should just use the owl. Okay.
correct.
Okay, Michael, thank you for everything. We're all set.
Okay, great. Have a good meeting.
Ha, ha, ha. Have a good meeting. Jeez. Do, 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 do. Jeez. Can you hear me now?
I can. Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. We're in our new,
Faith, yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't join you guys today.
are you
Would have been
really?
half an hour. I would have been half an hour late if I had to. I can walk without crutches now, so I'll be able to make it.
Oh, okay, no more excuses.
Yeah, just a limp. No excuses, just a limp.
And this building is ADA compliant, by the way.
Oh, right, yeah.
Should I?
So even if I had crutches, I would have no excuses.
Next video?
Yeah. Oh, there's Margaret.
Okey-dokey.
Okay, Margaret, you want to do, oh, we got 10 seconds to blast off.
Let me just, we're getting thinner on the ground here.
So there is that big school meeting. No, we have decent amount of people. You know, there's a big school meeting tonight.
I know. I really want to take that.
Yeah, me too, but I hope they record it.
As far as I know, they're not.
I know. They seem to find, with all that budget, they can't find $800 for an owl.
Well, to be fair, the new superintendent, when I went to meet her when she started,
We're on the air about, okay. good point.
they did change the meetings.
You're right, I know that, yeah.
Okay, so, are we ready?
Yep. Can anybody hear everybody?
Okay, so I'm just gonna do roll call. Art, I know is not joining us, he has a conflict. Ronnie, I see that you are there. Ryan, do we have Ryan?
Yes, we did.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? We have Morris. We have Tom. Crystal, I see you. And I see Linda. And I think that's everyone. There may be members of the public. Let me see who else is here. We have a number of people from the public. But that is the committee members, the president of the council, our note taker and our attorney. So let me just pull up, because we're not sharing screens here. Let me just pull up my agenda. So we have a fairly simple agenda here tonight. At the last meeting, we talked about the code relating to formula retail. And with some minor tweaks, I had suggested that we needed to make some minor tweaks to that code. There has been some discussion around it in the city. With a couple of new businesses that opened, and there were questions about whether or not they were meeting the requirement of being, you know, Hudson not being more than the fourth entity and so forth. And so what I had sent to everybody was a revision draft to the code. You should also have a link to the code itself. So if you want to open the draft that I sent, it has track changes on it. So we can talk about that. And I know, Crystal, that you had some questions about the purpose of this. So let me just explain to folks what I was attempting to do here. So one of the things when I was reading this code, when, you know, locally there was questions about a couple of stores, was that it was not really clear in how this was written, the point at which a business entity would have to declare or be in compliance with Hudson not being greater than the fourth entity. And so in the first paragraph, and Crystal, this may need to go somewhere else, but I inserted it here. In the first paragraph relating to formula retail use, I put in language that said type of sales activity, etc., that has 4 or more other retail sales in operation or with local land use or permit entitlements already applied for. located anywhere in the world. So I think one of the things here is, if we want to nail down the point at which an entity that wants to open
Audio has cut off.
Margaret, we lost you.
opening as a coffee shop, no change in use, right? But they probably would need a building permit. So at the point at which they enter the city wanting to open a business, if they list the number of entities that they have that are either in operation or they've already made application for, because it's conceivable that the process of getting permits and so forth and opening in Hudson, that might take a year, whereas something that they had started somewhere else, they might be open in 6 months. So if we nail down the point at which they say, okay, Hudson is no greater than the fourth entity that we have here, as they're working through their process, maybe they apply somewhere else, but at that point in time, we are no greater than the fourth. So I put in permanent entitlements already applied for. And then in addition to the four establishments either in operational or local land use permanent entitlements applied for, again, not necessarily granted. And then I didn't change any of the language around the features that define retail use. I have gone back and looked at where they come from. And that seemed reasonable. And the purpose, you know, this code, I was not part of any of the discussion going on the council, but the purpose of the code
Actually, none of
is
us were.
you were there.
No,
Oh, you were not.
Yeah.
It was the previous council.
right before, yeah.
The purpose of this was community character preservation. So it's about what the city looks like, to a large extent. And that's why it focuses on formula, business formula stores, stores that all look alike and so forth. That was the point. And that did not seem unreasonable to me. And then I added language that determination of formula retail use shall be made by code enforcement at the time that an initial application for building permit or other permit is made. So again, the idea that I had here was, I bought Nolita. I'm going to make it a coffee shop. It's still going to be a coffee shop. I have another coffee shop somewhere else, and when I go to code enforcement, I fill out a form and I list the other location where I have.
The audio cut off again.
They're actually fully frozen.
I can see movement in the video, but no
I
audio.
can see her talking. I just can't hear anything.
Yeah, it's the owl is. There we go.
Still no audio though.
Hey, Tom, can you hear us? So, okay, we can't hear anybody there. The owl has cut off. Oh no, we can visually see the owl. We have zero audio.
Hear me, right?
Now we can hear you. Yep.
Yeah, it
That's
says,
coming through the laptop.
okay, it says unstable internet connection. Oh, boy.
Hang on a second. Ryan, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes,
We got you.
So you didn't hear anything that I said so far?
Like the last 2 minutes or so.
It was brilliant.
We heard the part about Nolita and coffee, I think. And after that, cut off.
okay.
Okay, so I think that we're probably gonna have to come up with something here, Tom, where going forward, we have a call-in number and a phone, conference phone. If
Today?
This is gonna be, no, it's not gonna happen tonight,
No.
but if this is gonna be unstable,
You know, Michael would normally be here and he's much more savvy about this stuff than I am.
but if the internet's unstable, it's
Yeah.
unstable.
Yeah,
So let me, if you can all still hear me, I'm not that close to the owl. You want me to move closer?
No, we can actually
Oh,
hear
you're,
you.
Margaret, you're fine where you are. We could hear you clearly.
Okay, so bottom line here, is that the code as it was written, the intent was to preserve the character, the appearance largely of, downtown Hudson. And, when we had two stores, two businesses open where there was murmurings about whether or not this was in compliance, etc. One was Westerland, where at the time that it opened, we were the fifth store. And the other is the restaurant down on Warren and Second, Savona's. I think that still only has 4 stores, but at any rate, we were looking at this code, and the thing that I found a little vague about it was the point in time at which a business planning to open in Hudson would testify or attest to the fact that this is no greater than the 4th business. And so I was looking, like, a lot of businesses do not need to go before the planning board, it's the same use. Most of them, but not necessarily all, as Tom has pointed out, most of them, if they're going to do any refurbishment or rehab of the place, will end up getting a building permit from code enforcement. So what I had put into the document that I sent to you was a determination of the point in time where, you know, when they are applying for a permit, determination of retail use shall be made by code enforcement at the time an initial application for a building permit or other permit is made. And the definition of number of businesses would be either the sum of in operation, or you have an application outstanding, something. And so that kind of tightens down it really is just a question of defining what we mean by the number of businesses. Now, the 4 number appears to me to be arbitrary. I don't really know what discussion went into that. I don't know whether the right number is 6, 10, 5. I haven't been able to find any data on that. So I didn't mess with that. All I did was nail down the point in time. The only other edit that I put into the code was down under identification as former retail use, change of use. 32546 1.2. In the event the city determines any such application pending before an agency of the city or the city itself is at the time of application for former use, blah, blah, blah. And the applicant therefore has failed to identify itself as such on the application, then the application can be deemed incomplete. So I just put in at time of application. The applicant, so it says, in the event the city determines an approval issue pursuant to an application from an applicant that failed to identify itself as a former retail use on such application, as required hereby, such approval is issued pursuant to such application shall be nullity ab initio and subject the applicant to all penalties that may accrue hereunder. So that's really just about rescinding the authorization, rejecting the application. I kind of doubt that has ever happened or that that's going to happen. So if you have a business that, you know, they've started rehabbing, they're doing it, they're opening, and then somebody notices, oh, wait a minute, this is the 5th business, or the 6th or whatever. The reason, Crystal, I had put in my email the thought that maybe we want to have, you know, a fixed penalty. You opened a store, you weren't transparent or honest in your application. We're not going to make you close and move away unless it's, you know, somehow we didn't notice that Walmart opened a store. But we are going to say there's a penalty of, say, 10,000 or something, some amount that would be enough of a deterrent to have people comply with being transparent, so they don't get into that. So that was the only idea I was tossing out there. So this is the document that I had sent to you all. And I'm gonna stop now and listen to what everybody thinks, whether we need to make adjustments. What you think of the suggestions that I've made here.
Well, Crystal, I think Crystal has some response there.
Yeah, go ahead, Crystal.
Well, I did tweak the language a little bit, and I shot out another version of it right before the start of the meeting. I apologize for it being so quick, but and that's just really just playing around with where certain things are put in and the language. I mean, you've got in the first part, you're talking about under the definition of formula retail use, you're looking at essentially pending applications, and you're taking out approved. And if you're concerned about pending applications, you're going to want to keep approved as well in there as another or. So I made some tweaks to that. But what I did want to respond to is just that that discussion at the end, Margaret, about the penalty. So revoking a CO or an approval, when you're talking about a question as to whether an applicant essentially fraudulently made a representation on an application going to the city for a use that would otherwise be prohibited, is very egregious. And honestly, you know, a code enforcement situation would be revoking the CO, would be revoking their ability to operate, because that use is prohibited. It is not allowed there. So in this situation, I would not think a fine would be appropriate, because you are talking about zoning out a particular use. So that's where I would think that that's something that should remain in.
So let's say, Crystal, a scenario where we have a business that in their application, they indicated that they had 3 existing businesses, either in process or open, and Hudson was the 4th. And then they have opened, they're already in business. And somebody notes that, well, actually, they have 7 locations. And we look into it, and we find that actually at the time that they made their application to Hudson, they had 3 in operation and 2 applications, or 2 in process in another location, and now they're up and running and open in Hudson. And that we are now the 7th location. Is that a situation where Hudson would want to tell that business to close?
Well, the way the original law was written, it looks like it was based on an actual approval having been issued, or the establishment be operating at the time they submitted that application. So if you're talking about essentially this establishment, it doesn't have an approval from a different municipality. It doesn't have those 4 establishments that are operating, but it does have pending applications in, and our code was silent on that, then that's a different issue. But if they essentially applied to, you know, operate, and they had, you know, 3 establishments in operation and 1 approval that had already been given, and they didn't disclose that, then absolutely I would consider that's a situation where they essentially fraudulently put in that application, and you would be talking about significant code enforcement actions.
So would you be talking about telling the business to close?
Yes. I mean, you're talking about a prohibited use. This is not a situation where you've got, you know, it's maybe they're not complying with design standards. You're actually zoning out a use here once they hit that max. That is significant.
So in that instance, then my thought about the whole penalty thing was moot. We should just.
Yeah, they can't buy their way out of
Yeah,
that.
that would just forget about that. So the reason I put in the application as part of the tally, Crystal, is that I think that sometimes, you know, in some municipalities, things move faster than others. And I think it's conceivable that somebody might have an application in Hudson, and it might take a year and a half before they open. And meanwhile, after they started the process in Hudson, where we were the 4th, they've started something somewhere else, and by the time they open in Hudson, they have already opened a store somewhere else. And so that's why I wanted to put in that they have to disclose operations. I agree with you that we should keep in approved plus applications, and the sum of those cannot be great, if we want to stick with 4, cannot be greater than 3, with Hudson being the 4. And then if it takes us a year and a half to work through things, by which time, you know, after that application date, they put in an application somewhere else, fine, that's the future. We have to nail down a point in time where we're going to assess whether they're in compliance. That was really all I was trying to achieve here.
Okay.
Ryan or Ronnie, do you have any thoughts on this?
So I think we kind of touched on it in one of the previous meetings, like the intent of the law is to preserve the small town aspect of this of Hudson. So it's not necessarily to like stifle business growth. So if that is the essence of the law, then you know, we can't really, once the application's in, let's say that is the 4th store, we can't tell them not to open a 5th store after this, right? So that's what I'm understanding from, so the language has to kind of reflect that somehow, and that's not my forte, but.
That's why I wanted to put in an actual point in time at which we assess, because we cannot be in the business of regulating the future.
Yeah.
And so, you know, right at the time that you applied and we accepted and you said, great, while we were the 4th, that's terrific. So by the time you opened, we're the 6th. That's fine, because when you applied, we were the 4th.
Maybe we can also add, like, you know, language in there. I don't know if it would be feasible or not to, for example, a store is, you know, opens in Hudson and it's one of the first, you know, 1 to 4, right? And then they do become a corporate entity in the future. As long as they preserve that small, you know, small business aspect that made them, you know, fit into Hudson, as long as they preserve that, at least in Hudson, we don't really care what they do somewhere else. That's some other.
I think to be realistic, the chance of something like, let's say, you know, a chain store of magnitude would never begin here anyway, right? I mean, there's only any place where they could probably do it and would want to, you know. I doubt a Costco would want to, you know, if it was beginning, would start in Hudson, New York.
Yeah.
Something like that, you know.
Yeah, so for what it's worth, I lived many years in Texas, and Whole Foods started out in Austin. And Austin still has, or did, like I lived there for a long time, 10, 15 years. They still have the original Whole Foods. And they're very proud of it. Now it's a behemoth.
Sure,
But
grocery
it's still,
stores.
it's still
Love it.
there, and it's still what it was. Well, the last time I was there was probably like 12 years ago. It was still what it had always been. So, I mean, I think to some extent, Ronnie, I don't know that we can kind of legislate that kind of thing. But the way these businesses operate, like Ben and Jerry's or whatever, they're going to want their original store to have the cachet that it has, you know, like in downtown Dallas.
Yeah, so my point was just like, you know, let's, you know, take Costco, because you mentioned it, you know, Costco, you know, not Costco-esque store opens in Hudson and it becomes this global success. As long as they're not trying to put that formula retail like plan back into their original store, we don't really care at that point, is what I'm trying to say.
You're saying that, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, preserve the original store and its charms, fine. After that, we're not really concerned with your growth. That's what I was trying to say. Like, if the language can reflect that, it would kind of also show that the intent of the law is not to stifle business, it's to preserve the community.
Right.
Ryan?
No comments on mine. I mean, I understand what the intent is that we're driving here for. And I think, you know, Crystal addressed my issues in terms of zoning them out before they're actually fully in operation at any other location.
Sorry, Brian, you were breaking up.
Ronnie, were you able to hear me?
Yeah, Ryan said his concerns were met by Crystal's reply, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Do we have any, so Crystal, I guess you and I can work on this and get a version to the committee, and again, the intent here is just to clarify, not to really change, but just clear up some things here. Yes, Tom?
yeah, one last thing, I think we should talk to Craig.
Yes,
To let him
absolutely,
know,
absolutely.
because in the past, we've passed a couple things that were news to
No,
Craig.
no, before, right, no. And in my email that I sent, I think I put this in here, I think we have to be very clear that the onus is on the applicant
Right,
to complete a form honestly.
sure,
And all Craig has to do is collect the form and see what the total number listed on the application is. End of, he doesn't have any responsibility for doing due diligence, researching, anything else, has to be kept very simple.
yeah.
I'm just gonna see if there are any hands up from the public. I don't see anybody. Okay, all right, so that is our first agenda item. And then the second item is just a very quick update relating to the 25 mph limit. I don't believe I have been to NICOM at the last meeting. We talked at the last meeting of bringing up the issue of a citywide 25 mph speed limit. And at that time, it was our understanding that we might need to do an engineering study and so forth. And so I attended NICOM's winter conference and one of the legislative conference, and one of the sessions that was presented by their chief counsel, Wade, whose last name I'm blanking on.
Bill Trammell.
Thank you. Was specifically about the new rule around 25 mph and the fact that municipalities do not need to do a full study. What they need is a certification by a traffic engineer. And there were a number of municipalities there who were in the process of doing that as well. And so Crystal and I have talked about this. I've not been able to connect with Wade directly since the meeting. He is very, he's kind of a busy guy. But we're going to pursue that and see what our options are with regard to that. So Crystal, do you have anything you want to, I just wanted to give the committee an update that we are going to be looking at that and looking at what our options are, pursuing guidance that we're getting. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Just that I am absolutely comfortable with it being just an engineering certification. So at that point, the council would then need to essentially engage, hire a professional, a professional engineer, traffic engineer that is, familiar and knowledgeable on the DOT manual that is cited in the statute and that could provide the necessary certification. And then once the city has that, can move forward to adopting a law to revise the speed limits.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll probably have to put out a notice to get,
Sorry?
we'll probably have to get
Yeah,
three,
that's what Crystal said
yeah.
earlier today.
okay, oh, okay.
So, one of the things that, I guess we don't have this on hand, but one of the things that Wade had suggested was that if your municipality has a consulting group that you have, like, on a retainer or whatever that you're working with, that they would have these engineers on staff and do that. I don't think we have that situation.
Not on retainer, no. I mean, there are,
So if we have a particular project, then we go out.
right.
Yeah, so, Crystal, what would I need to do, or Tom, what would I need to do to get that process started, to get the three?
just find three and ask them for a
Proposal.
thank you.
Um,
That time of day, sorry.
yeah,
proposal.
it is indeed.
We've done it for the planning board before, Margaret. Where they've, the planning board chair has put out a request for, proposals for whatever type of engineering work they need. They get in the three, it's usually provided via email or something like that. And then they make a determination based off those three.
Okay, is that something, could you send me some of those from the planning board?
I'll do that,
Oh, okay, Tom was.
And have some of the names, the local-
Get started on that.
the local engineers.
So I did not have anything else. Does anyone on the committee have any new business that they want to bring up? Okay,
Well,
Yes,
I don't know if I should bring it up yet because it's got to go through a lot of research first. But I'd like to put on the table at some point the possibility of a flip tax. And the idea of a flip tax is that it means if you sell within a certain time your house, you pay a tax. A number of municipalities has this, and it seems to me it would be a good way to kind of help stabilize our housing economy by discouraging flippers, among others. I'm not sure it works or it's a good idea. I'm just saying, I think it might be something worth exploring.
I think it's very worth exploring.
Oh,
Because it
thank you.
artificially inflates the price of houses and prices people have.
I think it's long overdue. Let's be clear. We should have been here 10 years ago at this point.
Well, who could have foreseen 10 years ago what happened
Yeah.
in the last 2 years, right?
state level or something.
I think there may be a state tax, but certain municipalities, for example, Yonkers is famous for it. They just wanted the revenue. I mean, it would provide some revenue, but more importantly, you know, as both Ronnie and Ryan said, it kind of might have a little calming effect on this constant turnover.
I only bring it up because someone in my neighborhood, purchased a house and then one day after the 2-year period closed on the sale, purchased it for 300 some, sold it for 600 some. And it was like literally one day after the 2-year period,
Amazing.
that it did the closing.
And
But that was to avoid this tax.
Oh, for the state, avoid the state tax, yes. I'm sure, you know, you'd have exemptions, I assume, for people who've lived there all their life and are just cashing out at the, you know.
Yeah, that's the thing.
We're right, that's not flipping, exactly.
It's, if you don't hold, if it's not your property and your residence for X period of time, then,
Okay, I'm glad to see there's something
okay, I'll look
interesting.
into that. Are you thinking a 2-year time period, 3-year time period?
I don't know, someone told me, Great Barrington, well, it's not New York, but Great Barrington just did it. But,
And Yonkers?
and Yonkers, definitely, they've had it for a long time.
2 years is usually like, you know, the long, sometimes the longer of the time that it takes to flip a house sometimes. So that might just be, sorry, you guys not hearing me?
We are, so
We have a meeting at 7. Are you
No,
gonna be here?
we'll be gone.
we'll be gone.
Well,
Sorry, go ahead, Ronnie.
but sometimes if a property is, you know, very derelict, 2 years is the perfect amount of time you need to fix it. So it's not gonna discourage flippers. It might need to be a longer period of time. Cause like if I'm buying a house and I wanna live there, I'm not even gonna, you know, like 2 years is, most people are not buying houses for 2 years to live there. It's usually 4 or 5 years. Maybe they wanna upgrade. So a number that would,
There's still territories unknown that I haven't been able to.
Exactly.
fix, so.
Same thing for
Yeah.
17.
Okay,
Yeah, and I, you know, I wonder if you stay within the municipality, that probably wouldn't make a difference, you know, like Ronnie just talked about upgrading, well, you might want to upgrade within your own.
right, or downsizing. Sometimes you bought too big of a house, yeah?
well, I can look at Yonkers and Great Barrington, and if any of you know about any municipalities I should be looking at, just send me an email. And I'll look into it. Anything else we want to bring up? Ryan, Ronnie? Okay,
No.
so do we have a motion to adjourn? Oh,
Public.
sorry.
There is some public here.
Oh.
Oh,
I checked earlier.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, last call on the public, I didn't hear anything last time I asked.
Oh, I know you asked, sorry.
So, Ryan and Ronnie, do we have a motion to adjourn in a second?
Motion and second, someone.
So Ronnie is motion and Ryan is second.
Second.
And I'm not in disagreement, since there's only 3 of us, that's it. So have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Everyone.
Thanks.